Heinrich Himmler, one of the main architects of the Nazi Holocaust. Born the middle-class son of a schoolteacher, he became one of the most infamous figures in modern history. He was the driving force behind Germany's attempt to breed a master race and ordered the genocide of millions.
When she was arrested, she was 3 years old, and she was murdered in Auschwitz in 1942.
Most people from my generation don't understand how over 70 years ago, a small group of Nazis could start a war that killed 60 million people. I want to find out, and to help me, I'm going to use playing cards. Today, they're used by both the military and law enforcement to help identify their targets. But nobody has ever put together a pack of cards for the most notorious group of killers in history. Working with experts, I want to know where each of these Nazis rank in the hierarchy of evil. My name is James Ellis. This is Hitler's Most Wanted. One of the things I find most frightening about Himmler is if you look at his very early life, here's a guy who grows up in a well-to-do, middle-class family. There doesn't seem to be anything in his early childhood that sort of sets him up to be this sort of architect of terror during the Nazi regime.
I think you can look at his relationship with his father. It was one marked by distance, by a lack of warmth, by disappointment that might have affected his susceptibility to radicalization.
I think that he's tremendously insecure in some ways. As he develops into a young man, he is not fully formed. So I think this sort of radical groups that you see him join is what's going to give him the kind of center that he so desperately craves.
Yeah, well, it does seem that Himmler must have been searching for himself. Somebody who is trying to find his way is ripe to be taken in by these types of radicalization movements, and it was certainly ripe at the time.
I still think there's a big leap between coming into an environment with radicalized politics and then ending up as one of the key players in the Nazi system of terror, repression, and mass murder. So, exactly how did he make that leap? The answer lies in the original seat of Nazi power in Germany, Munich. And that's where I've come to. What I'm trying to understand is how Heinrich Himmler, how he became so radicalized.
Well, it all happened in Munich.
I've met up with freelance journalist Michael Tramer, who covers the activities of the far right in Germany today and knows its history well. It was here in Munich that the young Heinrich Himmler began his descent into darkness. Himmler was only 19 and the son of a schoolteacher. He had been too young to fight in the First World War, but found himself in the heat of the action in the aftermath of the German defeat. Wow, cool-looking building. Michael takes me to a place that was vital to the political development of a young Himmler. A beer hall.
Beer halls were very popular, crowded places, loud, predominantly men enjoying beer, enjoying the night, and also listening to political talks and slowly radicalizing themselves.
So this was really a place that people met to hear about politics, to discuss politics, but also they'd come into contact with major far-right leaders such as Hitler.
Most definitely.
In 1921, Hitler was leading the fledgling Nazi party. Across Munich's beer halls, he railed against the Jews and the communists, and found an audience among students and the unemployed. Among them was Heinrich Himmler.
In a time of crisis after World War I, it became quite common to blame Jews for all the hardship that had befallen Germany. And anti-Semites blamed Jews as being loyal only to each other and to their international interests. So the idea spread that Jews in high finance had betrayed Germany for their own ends.
We often find that individuals who feel disenfranchised from society are often searching for themselves, searching for meaning, and having a difficult time doing so. They find a scapegoat group to be able to blame for their problems. It's easier than to search inwards.
So how did Heinrich Himmler get involved with the Nazi movement?
He was a really talented dancer, actually, and participated in group dances, and those were also held in beer halls.
He became a Nazi through dancing.
That's how he made contact with fascists.
A dancing Himmler is a strange image to conjure, especially when you consider that many of the men around him were veterans of World War I. militarism was a big part of German culture at that time, I believe.
You're right. Militarism was really important. It pretty much painted a picture of the ideal man back then. Himmler had a fascination for military from very early on.
A defining moment in Himmler's youth was the fact that he was too young to enlist in World War I. His brother served, and Himmler resented that he didn't have the opportunity to prove his worth and serve as well.
Eager to rub shoulders with real war heroes, Himmler signs up for the Nazi Party in 1923. Just a few months later, he takes part in Hitler's attempt to overthrow Bavaria's democratic government in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch.
Himmler is nothing if not ruthlessly ambitious, and he knows that if he's going to rise within the Nazi Party, he needs to, attach himself to the coattails of one man. That's Adolf Hitler.
And where was Himmler at the time of the coup?
He was actually right here in the Löwenbräu-Keller.
Right here?
Well, maybe not on this exact spot, but in this
this
hall.
actual beer hall?
Yes.
Wow. It was in this beer hall, nearly 100 years ago, that Himmler joins the front line of a dangerous new political movement. So during the 1923 beer hall putsch, it must have been filled with hundreds of people, many of them heavily armed, all waiting for the orders to go and take their objective in the city. And for Himmler, that was a huge moment because this was his first significant involvement with the Nazi Party.
Yes, this was the moment for Himmler to prove that he's a soldier, that he's fighting for the cause. He is finally able to display his manhood.
This is Himmler's moment. He's marching through the streets, ready to take Munich and plow on to Berlin. But the Nazis are stopped in their tracks, and the coup ends in defeat at the foot of the city's iconic military monument, the Feldenhalle. There, during a confrontation with Munich police, 14 Nazi demonstrators were killed and dozens arrested, including Hitler himself. This was a significant moment in the rise of the Nazi Party, one that continues to resonate with far-right supporters even today. Michael has brought me to this nearby square, where tonight a group of anti-immigration protesters are laying out their extreme agenda.
We have here people in Germany, they are not allowed to be here. You have to go back in your home countries, and if they don't do this, you have to do it with another way.
What do you mean by other way?
Civil war.
Civil war. So you mean you would kind of start a civil war yourselves to force emigrate?
Yes. Islam is not compatible with the German society.
For us to be in the 21st century and these people to say that now it's looking at a time of violence, that to me is extremely disturbing and very frightening. And if we don't remember our history, we don't remember the lessons of the past, it could be a catastrophic moment for us. The parallels between what I've just heard and what happened here over 70 years ago are unmistakable. What was so frightening is he was talking about violence and a coming civil war in Europe.
He has made really clear in statements saying over the microphone, I just in general don't like Muslims. I can't help myself, but I don't like them. This hatred on a certain group for sure fueled the rise of the Nazis back then. Nowadays, they're aiming for a different target, but nevertheless, they are having radical thoughts on a certain group of people. They're openly racist.
So how do you feel about all this?
I find it really disturbing and frightening that a movement like this finds followers and gathers in the downtown of a city like Munich.
Yet this is just as it was in the time of Himmler, when his fascist leanings compelled him to join Hitler's attempted coup. The next day, Michael and I head to the Feldenhalle, where that attempt fell apart. So this is the location where the beer hall putsch was crushed.
Yes.
So this place was a very important site for the Nazis. So how was this area treated when they were in power?
During the time they were in power, every year they would hold a big rally here and people would have to Hitler salute when they were walked by.
So this was essentially transformed into a shrine.
Yes, this was transformed into a shrine, a really important place for the Nazis back then, and it is up to nowadays.
So what do you mean it's still a shrine?
Well, during a far-right rally down the road, a group of 10 split off the rally, walked over this place, marched up the steps, stood there, chanted "Hasta la vista, antifascista," and did an almost Hitler salute.
Today, the infamous salute is a criminal offense in Germany and many other European countries. It's shocking to learn that a similar gesture is still being used in a public place. So you're telling me that 2 years ago, a bunch of guys went up the steps here and almost did a Hitler salute.
Well, yeah, I can show you the video. I filmed that on that day.
You took a video of it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's see that. That's unbelievable.
You can see the video here. The group was standing up there in front of the statue, chanting, and here you see the guy doing the Hitler salute.
Yeah, I see him there. On my quest to figure out where Heinrich Himmler fits into Hitler's inner circle, I've been sidetracked by the fact that neo-Nazis are still gathering in Munich 70 years after the war ended.
Yes, my goodness.
It's an unsettling reminder of how young people can be seduced by far-right ideology, just like Himmler was back in 1923. That must have been bone-chilling to experience that.
Yeah, it was a pretty devastating moment. Munich police was criticized for not stopping the people to go up there, because usually, or it is in general, illegal to demonstrate up on that plane.
I imagine if you were traveling to Munich and you didn't know its history, you would never make that connection, because this is a 19th century looking building. It doesn't scream out to me as being something that would be used as a far-right or former Nazi shrine.
No, you're right. Most people here probably don't know that much about the historic meaning.
After the Nazis' attempted coup was stopped here at the Feldenhalle, Adolf Hitler was sent to prison. But Himmler emerged unscathed and hungry for more.
When it came time to charge people for involvement in this attempted coup, they found that there wasn't enough evidence against Himmler to actually charge him. This became an opportunity for Himmler, because as some of the Nazi elite were in prison, Himmler was able to take on an organizing role and a role of spreading and disseminating information.
In 1927, Himmler becomes party leader in Lower Bavaria. Soon after, he is appointed as head of the Nazis' elite bodyguard unit, known as the SS. He quickly expands the force to gain more power within the party. He gives speeches about Jewish conspiracies and helps to popularize the idea of Aryan supremacy, a master race dominated by blonde, blue-eyed Germans.
So in this context of this racial theorizing, people start thinking of Jews not so much as a different religious group, but as a different people, as fundamentally alien and other.
For the next leg of my journey, I'm heading to the town of Steinhöring, east of Munich, to meet a woman who understands better than anyone how Himmler's beliefs about racial purity were taken to the extreme.
Wow, this must be the original gate to this place. Look at that. The SS emblem. Really creepy.
This is the site of a terrifying secret program created by Himmler himself, known as Lebensborn.
I'm James. Very nice to meet you.
Gisela Heidenreich was a product of this program. What happened to her was so traumatizing that she is now a family therapist.
So, this was the first Lebensborn home. The institution was founded by Himmler in '35, and then he built the first and the biggest home here.
It's a legacy she has been forced to live with her entire life.
The Lebensborn program was actually Nazism and racial theory put into practice. It was essentially a breeding program for members of the SS to impregnate someone who was statuesque, blonde, looked very much the kind of wholesome woman that Nazis so liked. The idea was to breed as many perfect Aryan specimens as you could. Why? Because it was felt that that type of human being was better than a human being from another racial group. It was as simple as that. It was pure racism.
Heinrich Himmler took a special interest in the program. He ensured the mothers were screened for their racial suitability. It's even believed he considered himself the godfather of any child born on his birthday. And he ordered all SS officers to procreate for the nation, with a minimum of 4 children each.
And if you didn't have 4 children?
He could have illegitimate children out of the marriage.
Right.
Because he said, we can't spoil this precious German blood.
So the Nazis were selecting people to come here based on racial
Yeah,
characteristics.
exactly. But definitely it was the other side of Holocaust.
And there's a dark reality to Gisela's intimate knowledge of these events.
My mother was a tall blonde woman and my father was a tall blonde SS officer.
On my mission to determine where Heinrich Himmler ranks in Hitler's hierarchy of evil, I'm meeting with Gisela Heidenreich to learn more about his racist breeding program called Lebensborn.
So what was it like for you finding out that your father was an officer in the SS?
It was horrible. I don't want to be produced by a man who killed others. I felt suicidal.
Really?
Really.
Gisela was born after her mother had an affair with a married SS officer. Himmler encouraged all his officers to do this, to produce as many Aryan offspring as possible. He set up Lebensborn homes to house SS babies all across Nazi-held Europe. Some 8,000 illegitimate children were born in Germany and another 12,000 in Norway. But after the war, those children had to grow up with the stigma of their birth.
The teacher in front of the whole class asked me, there's something wrong in your file. There is no name of your father. What's the name of your father? I said, I don't know. And the whole class was roaring of laughter. So this was the first time I realized that something was really wrong with me.
So what's it like to see this place?
It's shame and fear and how could they do this? How could they try to produce special people who should in the future represent Germany?
Yeah.
And this makes me, sad and feeling guilty because I really feel I'm part of this whole system.
Aryan breeding may have been the program's primary focus, but Himmler took it even further.
The Lebensborn program wasn't just there for SS men to impregnate ideal Germanic women. It was also in the business of child kidnap. So when the Nazis took over various territories, you would have SS employees who would look around these villages and towns in places like Poland and the Ukraine and look, oh, there's a blonde child, a proper Aryan. So we'll just take him from his parents, take him back to Germany, give him a German name, make him fostered by a nice German family, and that's another Aryan to add to the mix. It was an absolutely evil thing to do.
There were more than 200 children here.
More than 200 children here?
Yeah, they put all the children in here who they collected from the other homes. Lebensborn is one of the whole horrible mixture of the criminality of Third Reich, and there was nothing good about it.
One of the hardest things to understand about Nazis is their sense of right and wrong. Many of them truly appeared, at least, to believe that their atrocious behaviors were, in fact, right or justified.
The idea of this place is so absurd. Himmler created the Lebensborn program in an attempt to create this mythical Aryan master race. Yet Himmler himself looked nothing like the tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed ideal he and the Nazis were obsessed with.
Gisela has really opened my eyes to the vile way Himmler's racist agenda destroyed so many families. But his Aryan ideology didn't end with racial purification. When Hitler and the Nazis came to power in 1933, Himmler's SS was already a force to be reckoned with. Soon after, Himmler took control of Germany's internal security and policing. Under his leadership, the SS began to crack down on all dissenting voices, including communists, Jews, church leaders, anyone who spoke out against the party. This was all part of a master plan to fundamentally change the social fabric of German society. I'm headed to the forests of Westphalia, 440 kilometers west of Berlin, to learn about Himmler's ultimate goal. And it all played out here at Wewelsburg Castle, the spiritual home of the SS.
What Himmler wants to do with the SS is to build it up into this elite unit, to be the model of northern Nordic Aryan manhood. Tall, blonde, athletic, intelligent, and Himmler really wants a castle. A Camelot, if you like, for my knights. Who are his knights? Members of the SS. And when he sees Wewelsburg, it just ticks all the boxes.
Himmler imagined Wewelsburg as a luxury retreat for SS leaders, where they would immerse themselves in Germanic legends and folklore. Today, the castle is a museum about the horrors the SS committed.
Yeah, maybe we go to the uniform.
Sure, let's do that.
Marcus Moores is the curator.
It's very striking. What was the significance of having a black uniform like this?
The black uniform should show the SS as an elitist part of the Nazi movement.
The SS uniform is one of the most iconic symbols of terror from World War II. It was designed to instill fear and make Himmler's officers feel superior. Himmler once boasted that the sight of an SS outfit was enough to make people fall ill.
The purpose of the SS is to exert violence, and this is, of course, a symbol of this violence.
I know it's just a uniform, but just seeing this thing up close and knowing what it represents, I just can't help but feel disgusted by it.
Rather than destroy this history, Marcus is determined to keep it alive so others don't forget.
Oh, wow.
They often play host to school groups who come here to learn the truth about Nazism.
I feel like I'm in a medieval hall. What is it?
This is called the Obergruppenführersaal, the Supreme Leaders of the SS Hall.
So specifically for the leadership of the SS?
For the leadership, for the highest generals and officers of the SS, right. Yeah.
I noticed there are 12 pillars. What do they represent?
We don't know it exactly. What maybe was in their minds is something like the legend of King Arthur and the 12 knights.
So this is like part of a twisted Arthurian legend, then?
He saw himself as the leader of some kind of successor of a medieval knights order.
The long-term goal of Wewelsburg was ultimately to become a kind of cathedral to Nazism. It was going to be a place where SS men would go to come and worship, if you like, the idea of the SS.
And at the heart of every religion are its symbols.
And what have we got here in the middle?
This ornament here in the middle of the Supreme Leaders Hall is known as the Black Sun.
The Black Sun?
The Black Sun, yeah.
What does this signify?
We don't know.
Do we have any idea?
The people who should stay here, or who should stand here, maybe should feel like standing
in the center of the world?
In the center of the world, in a symbolic way.
So is this symbol used by members of the far right or neo-Nazis today?
You can find it on websites in Australia, you can find it on the uniforms of Ukrainian nationalist militias, and the demonstrations of neo-Nazis in Charlottesville.
Yes.
There were flags with exactly this ornament here.
People were flying flags in America with this symbol on it.
Nazi symbols continue to play a huge role in modern-day fascism. And as I wrap up my visit to Wewelsburg, we find evidence the castle may still be a draw for today's extremists.
What's that?
On my visit to Wewelsburg Castle to learn more about Heinrich Himmler's ultimate ambitions for the SS, I am shocked to see some visitors could still be celebrating the Nazis instead of learning from their legacy of terror.
It looks as if someone has deliberately placed a swastika in the ground. Considering the dark past of this building connected to the history of the SS, it is really, really frightening. How does it make you feel?
Well, of course, angry. We're an institution to educate people about what Nazism and the SS really were.
How important is it for you to ensure that this place does not become a Nazi shrine?
Well, that's what we are working for, of course, what Nazism really meant. It's the persecution of people, it's the hurting of people, it's the killing of people. There is no positive way of thinking about Nazism that is possible.
Himmler's use of Wewelsburg as a cathedral to Nazism may well be disturbing. But his twisted beliefs took on another, far more horrific form. And that's where I'm going next, to the site of where some of the worst crimes in history were committed.
So I've never actually been to a concentration camp before.
Okay.
This is my first time to one, and I know it's important to be here, but I'll be completely honest, I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, lots of people say the same thing. It's, even now, so many years later, it's still a very haunting place. Yeah, lots of people have a very strong...
Alexander Pearman is an archivist working at Dachau's memorial site, 30 kilometers north of Munich.
Needless to say, I can totally empathize.
This expression is very famous, so can you just tell me what it means and why it's here?
As you say, very iconic. Arbeit macht frei, so work will set you free.
Dachau was the first Nazi concentration camp set up by Heinrich Himmler.
The Nazis, actually, in the early days, publicized the opening of the concentration camps.
Really?
They tried to create an illusion. They said, so we're taking the bad people that are responsible for all the unrest in Germany before we took over. Yeah. We're going to put them in these concentration camps, and through hard work, we're going to reform them.
So it was like an elaborate prison system to reform people who were seen as being undesirable to the nation.
Exactly. The reality on the other side is that the work in the camp was actually designed by the Nazis, pure and simple, to break the inmates.
Himmler was the key figure in establishing how they were designed and how they were run.
Himmler creates a whole new unit of the SS, the Death's Head units, that are there to run the concentration camps. This is absolutely a key part of the way Himmler builds power. He's in charge, he puts his placemen in charge of each of the individual camps, and they report to him.
It's very eerie.
Absolutely. This is what was called the Appellplatz, so the roll call square, and this was designed to make the inmates feel very small, very insignificant, and to intimidate them. So this area could actually hold a capacity of 40,000 inmates at one time.
40,000 people right in front of
Exactly.
us here.
Exactly.
It must have been absolutely terrifying to be in here.
This is where sadistic SS guards gathered their prisoners for roll call before they began a 12-hour day of forced labor. Anyone who disobeyed was severely punished.
What is this place?
So this was then called the bunker. This was the prison within the concentration camp.
What does that mean?
So that means, for example, that certain inmates that were seen as having broken the rules would have been put here. There were cells then where inmates could be deprived of light, of warm food. There were certain cells that were standing cells. The inmates wouldn't have been able to sit or lay down.
So you had to stand?
Exactly.
Like, how long are we talking time period there?
Between a day and 36 hours.
A day standing up?
Yeah, it would be very hard physically.
It's chilling to think that people were actually placed in these cells. They're treated like animals.
After Germany invaded Poland in 1939, the flow of prisoners to Dachau steadily increased, and the camp was expanded.
What is this place?
This is a reconstruction of what the barracks would have looked like.
How many people were living in this barracks?
Later on in the camp, so the period 1944 to 45, each dorm would have 500 inmates. Disease was then rife. The inmates, their only worth was what they could offer the German war industry. So people were literally driven into the ground.
So basically this place was overcrowded, people were starving, and the SS was working them to death.
So many people were dying, the SS decided to build a crematorium facility. That way, the bodies could be disposed of on site.
It's just so barbaric.
Under Himmler's direction, Dachau became the prototype.
Himmler genuinely regards the people in his concentration camps as being less than human, the Untermenschen, the subhumans. And once you start regarding these people as being essentially like animals, you're happy just to use them as tools.
Himmler oversaw the entire camp system, but he had a special interest in Dachau. It's where he ordered prisoners to build a large herb garden called the plantation.
Why did Himmler have a plantation built next to this concentration camp?
He had an interest in herbal remedies. One project they did as part of the human experiments that took place here, over 1,000 inmates were infected with malaria, and then various herbs and spices were used to try and treat malaria.
So wait, they were deliberately infecting inmates here with malaria?
Yeah. There was no moral conundrum involved at all. The fact that people were dying in the course of trying to find alternate remedies for keeping Germans alive, it was a price he was prepared to pay.
A terrible price.
Absolutely.
One of the remarkable things about the Nazis was their ability to compartmentalize, to be able to commit these atrocious acts against given a group of others, and yet somehow go home at night and live with themselves.
Everything we think of as the worst of Nazi atrocities can often be traced to Himmler's initiative. Himmler was responsible for the expansion of the concentration camp system, and he's the one who created the first camps that were designed specifically as centers of extermination.
To give you an example of a death camp in Treblinka, it was open for about 11 months. In those 11 months, almost 1 million people died.
1 million people in 11 months. That's 100,000 a month.
Death camps like Treblinka in Poland reached those figures through the use of specially designed gas chambers, in which people were murdered en masse. For many, concentration camps like Dachau became the last stop on their journey to those chambers.
If there was one person who was responsible for all this, that's Heinrich Himmler. To me, it is so frightening that one person could be that evil, that they could have that sort of a diabolical vision to create places like this and commit atrocities and mass murder on such a huge scale. What's it like for you on an emotional level to deal with this content on a regular basis?
As much of a cliche as it may sound, it's an honor to work here. It's an honor to be able to keep the history and the events alive so that we can then hopefully learn from this.
It's important to understand an estimated 40,000 people were murdered here by the Nazis less than 75 years ago. How could someone create something as evil as this?
This is why Himmler is considered to be the architect of the final solution. He was key to the systematic murder of not just Jews, but all those considered enemies of the state, most of whom were a threat to no one.
Miriam Grunbaum, when she was arrested, she was 3 years old.
3.
And she was murdered in Auschwitz in 1942. So, James, what I'm going to show you are 13 Stolpersteine, stumbling blocks.
On my mission to determine where Heinrich Himmler sits in Hitler's hierarchy of evil, I've returned to Munich. I'm here to meet journalist Terry Schwartzberg to learn about the world's largest memorial.
Everywhere with the Nazis killed people, Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, there are Stolpersteine. And as you'll see, you don't stumble over them, despite their name. You stumble upon them, and that's what we're about to do.
The Stolperstein project began in 1992. Each bronze plaque remembers a victim who suffered under the Nazis. From the millions murdered in the camps Himmler devised to the thousands more who survived them, as well as those who fled persecution.
So it's commemorating not just people who were murdered, but also people who survived persecution as well as suffering it.
Right. These Stolperstein are for 3 Jewish families. This family, the Rosners here, as you can see, mother, father, 4 children. Look here, over here, if you can. Miriam Grunbaum, when she was arrested, she was 3 years old. 3 years old. And she was murdered in Auschwitz in 1942. I mean, I have children. What? How can you murder children? How can you murder a 3-year-old?
I can't get my head around that. These people are completely innocent.
Inspired by the Talmudic saying, a person is only forgotten when his or her name is forgotten, the stones evoke the memory of those the Nazis attempted to erase. Once a stone is complete, it's placed in the ground in front of the victim's home. Each one begins with "Here lived."
Stolperstein are not just a project of commemoration, but we're a family. A family comprised of the victims, comprised of their descendants, their families, comprised of the people who donate the stones, the people who research the stones, and the people who come and learn about the Holocaust by stumbling upon, not over them, but stumbling upon these Stolpersteine.
Terry and other volunteers regularly polish the stones so they don't vanish from sight.
So here's your water. Okay. Here's your polish. Here's your sponge. Sponges are coming, they're a bit wet.
Just scrub it?
Yeah, and scrub it up. And try to keep yourself clean in the process. Oh, it's coming along very nicely.
Good.
Here comes the miracle. Look how beautiful they get.
Incredible. Oh, nice and shiny. They really are very beautiful.
Yes. Made by hand, that's the whole idea.
Really?
Definitely, the artist, he says, it's an art project and not a mass production product, so they really need to be made by hand, stamped by hand, put into the ground.
The project has led to the creation of more than 70,000 Stolpersteine across 24 countries. But that's a drop in the ocean. The aim is to remember every single person persecuted by the Nazis, including survivors.
We have to put about 18 million Stolpersteine in the ground.
18 million?
Yeah, and we've gotten 70,000. It's a job that's going to take us a while, so we'll be busy for generations.
That's amazing. It must be very fulfilling for you to be able to do this as well, to keep the memory of these people alive.
Yes. Well, I think each person should be remembered. Each person's fate twists your guts, twists your innards. It makes you realize that you, me, and everybody else, these people were just normal people living their lives, and one day somebody said, you're going to be killed, you're going to be persecuted, and they lost everything. I think for my children, and for all the children to come, the Stolpersteine are the best guarantee that we will never experience something like the Nazis again, because they remind us how easily it can happen, and that it did happen, and that's why they've never been more important than they are now.
Given the evidence I've seen of today's Nazis in German streets, these stones seem like shining symbols in a darkening world. They're also a fitting conclusion to my journey into understanding Heinrich Himmler's role in the Holocaust. Now it's time for me to finally determine where this diabolical Nazi fits into Hitler's hierarchy of evil.
What to me makes Himmler especially chilling is that he knows what he's doing is wrong.
My visit to Germany has helped inform my understanding of the role Heinrich Himmler played in the Nazi regime. Now it's time for us to decide where he should sit in the hierarchy of evil. Using our unique system of playing cards, I want to determine where Himmler ranks in Hitler's most wanted.
So when you look at Himmler's early life, one thing I was struck by was how stable his family is. But suddenly as a young man, he's seeking out radical political movements.
I think he desperately wanted to fight, didn't he? He was just too young to fight in the First World War, and he always had a massive chip on his shoulder about that.
And the desire to try to fit in and the inability to do so, particularly in the context of the society at the time, it makes him ripe for radicalization.
I've seen firsthand how the radicalization of the 1920s mirrors the way it occurs today. For Himmler, his need to be superior runs deeper. He didn't just want to keep Germany for Germans. He wanted to create an Aryan race.
Interestingly, it's a very personal example of the way that purity and ideas of degeneration and contamination loom so large in Nazi society and the Nazi state, from racial purity all the way down to the level of what an individual Nazi should be as a man, what kind of sexual purity he should practice.
But Himmler was no ordinary SS officer. He might not have pulled any triggers, but he was responsible for murder on an industrial scale.
The place that I went to that I think sort of had the biggest impact on me was Dachau, because I was really struck by the brutality of the system that he created and oversaw.
We can't underestimate the role of anti-Semitism, the role of racial theory, and the role of the belief in racial supremacy in Himmler's politics and in his vision.
You're absolutely right. Himmler was fundamentally responsible for it. I mean, I think the short answer is, without him, it wouldn't have happened to the extent that it did happen. Yes, concentration camps as a concept had been invented even before the Nazi period, but it takes this man to absolutely sort of perfect it to its terrible conclusion.
Anthony, what do you think?
Himmler is the figure who sets things in motion, who creates camps, and who pushes for the final solution.
So by the end of the Second World War, Himmler is overseeing the Nazi terror and mass murder apparatus. He's an immensely powerful man. How comfortable was he with all that power?
I think he was like a swan. On the surface, yes, it all looks very comfortable, but below, he's paddling furiously because he knows what he is doing is wrong on a very, very deep level.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, he seems to have this innate capacity to compartmentalize, to recognize right from wrong. And so it's really amazing that he's able to continue doing what he's doing, to continue on with the ideological adherence.
And I think that's what makes Himmler evil. He knows what he's doing is wrong, and that's what makes him more chilling.
The establishment of the camp system, in which so many died, makes him a critical member of Hitler's inner circle. But despite the terrible toll he inflicted, his time as leader of the SS ended abruptly in May 1945. As the Allies marched through Germany, Himmler attempted to go into hiding, but is caught at a checkpoint. Trapped in custody, he swallows a hidden cyanide capsule and dies.
So what I'd like to do now is come to some conclusion as to where Himmler ranks in the Nazi hierarchy of evil. So Anthony, your thoughts?
What makes Nazi evil unique is genocide, terror, and wars of extermination. Himmler is responsible for all three. He's number 2.
Guy?
I totally agree with you. He has to be number 2. None of this could have happened without him.
Matt?
Yeah, I don't think the psychology speaks to him in this case, but the history, I agree, number 2.
So based on my experience of his story in Germany and the conversation we've had, I have to agree with you guys. For me, he's number 2, therefore, he is the Ace of Hearts.
Second only to Hitler, Heinrich Himmler was the criminal mastermind behind the Nazi genocide. For the unspeakable horrors he unleashed across Europe, Himmler trumps all his rivals in Hitler's Most Wanted.